Today I want to show you how to go from playing Leatherface like this to playing Leatherface like this. Bubba is the main character in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and without him the game wouldn't feel quite the same, but he is the main reason that people lobby jump. So when you find out that you're forced to play as Leatherface, if somebody's not willing to swap with you, then that's when you get a lot of people backing out and going back into matches and, just bouncing around trying to avoid playing as him. But what if I told you just by doing a couple of things that we're going to talk about here today, not only would you feel forced to play as him, but you would actually enjoy playing as him to the point where you don't really want to play as any other killer. That's what I hope to help you out with today. If any of this stuff helps you or you like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre content I'm doing, consider subscribing. Let's go ahead and get into it. Now, the first thing that I want to start with before we even get into a match is his perks and abilities. So the perks that I run here are pretty simple because I want to build upon his savagery, right? He's the most savage hunter in the game, and I want to exploit that to an extent, right? I want to build upon that. Now, you could always run perks that will help out the other family members too. That's totally up to you. And you may have a different tree that you run altogether. But this is the way that I build my Leatherface. First one I go with is Cycle Charge. And so you're going to be revving your chainsaw a lot, and this actually helps you to regenerate stamina up to 60% faster. Now, Bubba already has good savagery, he's got good endurance, his blood harvesting isn't the best, but still, we can build upon that stamina, and since we're revving our chainsaw anyways, I feel like it's a pretty good perk. Another one I run is Rough Cut, and this is going to be really helpful in the basement where you can't always get to victims because they go through a crack in the wall or through a crawl space. It's actually going to deplete some of their health up to 7 seconds after you hit them with the chainsaw. So while you can't follow them through a crack, you could potentially incapacitate them, and it might give you an opportunity to at least work your way around to them to finish them off. The last one I run is Hysterical Strength. So when you're below 15% stamina, you can actually do up to 20% more damage. Now, a lot of people will run Big Swings. This actually negatively affects your stamina quite a bit, which is the reason I don't run it, but it is a good perk. And another one that's probably become a meme at this point, I'm not really sure, is Rubber Boots. So if you have people that are trying to troll you, let's say they already get outside the gate, the generator or the battery gets turned back on, and they're just teabagging, trying to get under your skin. If you're running Rubber Boots, you can actually run over electrified cattle grids. And I've seen some pretty awesome videos where people playing as Leatherface use this to their advantage and actually got the kill. How useful is that on a game-to-game basis? I don't think it's that useful, but it is there if you want to try and run it. And like I said, there's a whole variety of perks, and there's different ways you can play as Leatherface. Again, I just like to build upon his already savage nature. Now, I do want to talk about his ability, but I want to talk about using his chainsaw first because that's probably the most important part of this video. Learning how to use his chainsaw is going to be vital. Okay, so you start up the chainsaw. There's no real reason to ever shut the chainsaw off. I mean, if you want to try to be stealthy with Leatherface, I don't suggest playing like that because even if you do end up sneaking up on a victim, you're going to have to start up the chainsaw anyways. Chances are they're going to hear you. They're going to run away. So once you start it, the whole idea is to hopefully not have it stall whatsoever. Now, the way I like to play on PS5 anyways is I have L1 and L2. I'm always using these two buttons, right? I want to keep that chainsaw revved up, but I also want to utilize his ability and actually run around the map so I'm moving quicker. Now, think about his chainsaw meter as basically in percentages, right? If 50%, that means we've started up his chainsaw. The other 50%, if we max that out, we're going to stall out. But if we run it up to 75%, that's where he's actually going to bring the chainsaw up over his head. And then right there between 75 and let's just say 95% is where you want to be, especially when you're doing a heavy attack on a victim. You're going to start seeing black smoke. You're going to hear a whistling sound from the chainsaw once it gets close to stalling, but that's about the spot that you want to be in. Now, there are times where you don't want to be at 75%, at least not starting out. So let's say the basement door opens. You don't want to be running. You actually want to stay there, but you want to consistently get that chainsaw revved up to, let's say, 60%, maybe even 70%, but you're right there on the line right before he's about to run, but it's revved up enough where once you see a victim, you can then do a power attack and actually land a critical hit. So watch what I do right here as I'm watching over the basement and the valve exit. I'm trying to stay in place, but I also want to keep that chainsaw revved up, ready to go, trying to keep it as close to 75 as I can while staying still. And then once I see the victim, I go in, make my move, and then get the kill, because all I got to do is give the chainsaw a little more juice. He's in his animation where I can get that power hit. One thing I want to point out here is if I'm actively searching for somebody in bushes or if I'm down in the basement, I'll keep my chainsaw at like 60 to 65% because I don't want to be running while I do this because it makes it harder to actually see people. I just want to keep it right there in that sweet spot so it's almost ready. But then again, I have good visibility and I've slowed down enough where I can actually see people. Another thing about running across people that are in bushes, if you run across them, they're going to assume you didn't see them as long as you don't make it so obvious. So try to run past them maybe a little bit, get your chainsaw up to 75, 80% and come right back, and you'll find that you'll get a lot of kills this way. But if you start just randomly swinging as soon as you see that person, then, obviously they're going to try to escape. And then if you're actively chasing a victim, that's where you definitely want it over his head. One thing you got to learn too is when to throw your critical hits. Because if you're actively chasing somebody and they turn off quickly to the right or the left, you want to always kind of make sure that you're not holding L2 down or not keeping his chainsaw up, just maxed out, revved. And then, you just take a chance and go for that critical hit. You want to kind of fluctuate, and always kind of keep that thing going, but you don't want to max it out each and every time. So it really comes down to just a feel of that chainsaw. So think about it in percentages. If you keep it from 75% to, let's say, 90%, and you're constantly keeping it in that area as you're actively chasing, down a victim, it's going to allow a little bit of room for error. But then we can actually extend that room for error, giving us a better opportunity to actually get a hit. And if we miss that hit, it's not going to be as costly. So when you first start out, you're going to miss hits. You're going to miss those big, heavy attacks from time to time. But once you start playing as him and you get your ability leveled up, this is going to be crucial in allowing you to recover from those missed hits or from hitting a victim. Let's say they're at 100% health. That's going to allow you to recover even quickly so you can get second or third hits and then allow you to finish them off. The way I run my ability is straight up the middle. This allows us to use the chainsaw up to 20% more without it stalling. Now, there's times where you may rev it out a little bit too much and it may stall on you, but the chances of this happening once you have this ability leveled up are going to fade very quickly. Even at level 1, it's going to help you out a lot because it gives you 10% more revving ability without the chance of it stalling. And then at level 2, you got 20%. And then at level 3, that's where you get your instant starts. So having this balance and thinking about your chainsaw on a percentage scale is really going to help you out to hopefully never have to stall this thing. And that's the whole goal with Leatherface, is not only his brutality and clearing obstacles in the way for the family and helping out. Sometimes you don't want to clear obstacles. I'm about to talk about that here in a minute with some of the tactics that I use. But regardless, the whole goal, get as many kills as possible, obviously, but also not have his chainsaw stall out. And that ability, when you go straight up the middle, it's going to help you a lot in that. So once we've learned the chainsaw, which is one of the most important thing, how do we actually play as Leatherface? What I've started doing is learning the routes that I want to take, whether it's slaughterhouse, family house, or the gas station. I pretty much take the same route every single game. I'll start patrolling lockboxes and some of the basement doors, and I just keep kind of going back through loops. Now, I will spend typically, just kind of a rough estimate, but maybe 3 minutes in the basement. If after 3 minutes I'm not actively seeing people, I haven't already gotten at least one kill, or maybe even if I have gotten a kill, I'm out of there, right? Because now it's time to start patrolling exits. And that leads to one very important thing. Don't fall for the trolling. You will be trolled as Leatherface. The more you play with them, the worse it gets. People will stun you instantly. They will grab bone shards and stab you in the back as much as they can, or they will try to loop you and keep you down there as long as possible, so then other victims can start unlocking picks, unlocking basement doors, getting exits open, so then they can make their escape. So if you find yourself chasing a victim, I would say max a minute, and you still haven't gotten anywhere with it, there's a good chance that he is trying to keep you in that loop because other victims are actually doing a lot of the work in trying to make their escape. So, point of that, don't spend too much time with one victim. Try to pull off of them. As frustrating as that can be, and sometimes I know it's like, man, you just want that one kill, especially with players that play as Leland, because his ability is kind of a troll ability anyways, right? I understand that, but you want to pull off of them again. If you go a minute, maximum minute and a half or 2 minutes, just pull off of them and start, go upstairs and start patrolling your exits, because they're trying to lead you on for something else. And by the way, your time in the basement as Leatherface is super important. This is going to give you a chance, once you learn the route you want to take, you're going to start figuring out, okay, this is where they spawn in. These doors are the ones they typically like to latch close. These are the ones I'm going to destroy, and you're going to get an idea. Okay, I normally will have 1 or 2 survivors that stay in this general area. And like I said, if you can get 1, maybe even 2 off of the map down in the basement before a door has even been opened, that's a really good start. And this is very useful in the basement. Sometimes you'll have victims go through a crack in the wall. If you make it seem like you're actually going to follow them all the way around, but you stop in a way where you can actually see down that line, but make yourself where you can't be seen, but you just kind of use the camera to your advantage where you can still see that crack in the wall or wherever they disappear to, there's a good chance they'll come right back through that crack. What you don't want to do is stop revving your chainsaw. You just want to kind of make it seem like you're following them because they come back through, and if they come back through and you're close enough, this will give you the opportunity to get that kill. So using little tricks like that is useful. You don't want it to seem too obvious that you've just kind of stood still. You can maybe even do like a little circle so it sounds like you're still running. You still got the chainsaw revved up, but just keep that line of sight. And like I said, you'll find out that a lot of the times people will actually come right back through the same crack they just went through. Now, you also want to be careful when people are approaching cracks in the wall or they're approaching crawl spaces. There is a small window of opportunity right as they start to enter that crack or crawl space where you could get a critical hit. But 9 times out of 10, if I see them just start to edge through it, I'll just do a regular chainsaw hit and then maybe thrust through, to maybe get an additional hit. But you just want to be kind of careful there, because that'll be, power slams that really turn out to be nothing. Also, it is pretty critical to get rid of some of the wooden structures that are in your way, but not all of them. Any of those wooden structures that allow you to get around to the other side fairly quickly, with enough time to where they go through the animation, they crawl through, and they fall out on the other side, I typically don't get rid of those because that can give you an easy chance to get off a kill. So I would say destroy most of those barriers, but leave some that actually give you a little route either to the left or the right of those where you have enough time where you could get around to them, because that may help you out in slowing them down, not slowing you down, and giving you some pretty cool opportunities there. Like I said, man, keeping that chainsaw revved up 75, to 90% roughly somewhere in there, getting those abilities ranked up, going straight up the middle on that ability tree and getting the right perks. And you're going to find yourself enjoying playing as Leatherface. As crazy as that might sound right now, I promise you, he is a fantastic character to play as and super satisfying when you get kills with him. That's pretty much it, man. The rest is just patrolling and good communication. And hopefully these ideas will help you to play as Leatherface more effectively. I'd love to hear how y'all play as Leatherface, how y'all set him up. Leave those things down below if you like what I do. Consider subscribing. See y'all in the next one. And as always, hold him down.